Welcome everyone to Weekend Wisdom. This is what we call a short form podcast by Creating a Family. We also have a long form podcast where we interview an expert, but Weekend Wisdoms are where we answer your questions. So do us a favor and please send us your questions. You can send them at info@creatingafamily.org, or you can leave a comment or a review or comment on this one, and we will see it that way as well. But the safest way is to email us at info@creatingafamily.org. Without further ado, I'm going to jump into this week's question that came from Brittany. She says, my husband and I had a swift match and placement in December. When we were presented with the case, all that was reported for drug use was smoking 12 cigarettes a day. After about a month of trying to get medical records from the hospital for my pediatrician, I discovered my baby's meconium tested positive for meth. This lab results came on Monday and we were released from the hospital the Friday before, so no one told us about the test results. The agency got me medical records and they didn't even mention it when they sent the records to me. I was also told that the birth mom had prenatal care when the medical records said it was spotty prenatal care. I was shocked when I came across the lab results. We met both of my son's birth parents a couple of times while in the hospital and had good visits. My husband is usually very good at identifying people on drugs, but he didn't suspect anything was amiss. We met our son's siblings, and they all seemed well cared for. My son also did not appear to go through withdrawals. He was never in the NICU and was released from the hospital 2 days after birth. He was a healthy weight and had excellent Apgar scores. I know I would have passed on this case if I knew meth was involved. And so in a way, this is a blessing because I love my son and I'm so glad that we were selected to parent him. But I feel some trust has been broken between us and his birth parents. I text them weekly with photos and small updates, but I can't help but feel a little resentful to both the birth parents and the agency. How do you suggest I deal with this situation? Thank you as always for your support and wisdom. Well, Brittany, first of all, I am not a mental health provider. Let's get that out there. But it sounds to me like you're struggling primarily with the feeling of being betrayed or lied to. All right, so let's start with more of the practical things at the beginning first. At this point, I would not worry about spotty prenatal care. Your son was healthy at birth, fine weight, great Apgar score. At this point, that's something that I would just let pass. All right, now let's talk again from a kind of a practical standpoint about the impact of meth so that you have an idea of what you're dealing with. And you may have already done some of this, you may have already know this, but the primary impacts we see from meth are, and these the short-term ones, would be preterm delivery, low birth weight, small head size, indicating poor growth. And obviously, the worse outcomes, the longer during the pregnancy time that the mom used meth. So you don't know how much he was exposed, but he has none of those symptoms. You do need to be aware of his exposure, because we do know that there are some long-term impacts, learning issues, things like that can come with prenatal substance exposure in general. And if you notice those, getting early intervention is effective. It's a very effective way of helping these kids. So you're looking for behavioral or developmental, and primarily developmental issues. But on the other hand, don't let it make you paranoid. Don't look for every little thing. He stutters or he does whatever, and that you're actively looking for problems. I don't want you to do that, but I do want you to be aware. And if you see symptoms, get help and get help early. Now, I want to also now talk about what I think is probably the underlying thing that's propelling your question, and that is that feeling of being betrayed. And that feeling of being betrayed will lead you to resentment. It just does. The first step I think you do need to acknowledge, which you did in there, is acknowledge your blessings. Your son sounds pretty darn perfect. He's like what I like to call a Mary Poppins baby, practically perfect in every way. He seems to be doing well. He seems to have thrived in pregnancy from all the things that we can determine: birth weight, head size, Apgar scores, things like that. But I get why you're feeling resentment. And one thing to consider is talking with a therapist about it, of which I am not. But if it were me, I would want to address this issue with both the agency as well as the birth parents, because resentment will build if you're feeling this feeling of betrayal or feeling like you were lied to. Let's start with the agency, because honestly, that's easier. Depending on your relationship with the agency, you could do it in writing or in person. You could tell them that you should have been notified, that this was important information, and how you feel about the situation. You could also file a complaint with whatever agency they are accredited under, and they should be accredited. So those are the things you could do with the agency. Now, with the parents, if it were me, I would tread more carefully. You want to preserve a long-term relationship with them. And the reason you are approaching them, I think it's important for you to think through. So why am I even raising it to begin with? To me, there would be two reasons that if it were me, I might raise it. One is to air the issue so that it doesn't fester. And it sounds to me like it's festering. So I think you will want to raise the issue there. And the second reason you want to raise this issue with the parents would be to get more information about the exposure, what else he might have been exposed to, and the things that might not have been shown up in testing the meconium or anything else umbilical cord blood or anything else. For example, alcohol would not show up in those things. So those would be the two reasons that you would want to approach the parents. And I would do it in person. I wouldn't do it over the phone. I wouldn't do it over Zoom. You don't mention having contact with them, but it sounds like hopefully you live close enough that you can do it. If you can't do it in person, I guess doing something like FaceTime, but I would really try to do it in person. And as hard as this might be, you really do need to ditch your resentment and your anger. I understand why you have it. You were lied to, and that is frustrating and it's scary, and I get why you have it. But here's the thing. You know why they lied. Number one, they were embarrassed. Parents know that they're not supposed to use drugs in pregnancy, and they were embarrassed and didn't want to admit it. And also, they were probably fearful that if they acknowledged meth use, or if she had acknowledged meth use, that you would reject the match, you would reject the placement, which you've already said you would have done. So they were trying to protect their baby. Now, in fact, you and I could both say a better way to protect the baby would have been to be honest, and we may be right, but it's not like you don't know why they didn't tell you the truth. And what you want to do is be able to say that what you know now. And if you feel like you have to say, I'm hurt that I wasn't told the truth, but the reason that you want to get to is, I want you to know that you can trust me with this information. You can trust that I'm not going to judge you. You can trust me that you could tell me things it's hard information, things that I may not want to hear, because you want them to be able to be honest with you about what was he exposed to and how often. And the reason you want this information, you can stress to them, is that this will help me be a better parent to our son. And please share this. Please, you're trying to create trust with the parents so they will share. All right. Well, good luck with this. I appreciate where you're at, and I appreciate how it is hard for you. And also, congrats on your beautiful son. So, Brittany, thanks for submitting the question. I really appreciate that too. And before everyone leaves, let me remind you that it would be very helpful and very much appreciated if you would leave us a rating for this podcast. It's easy to do and it's quick to do, and it depends on what app you're using. If you're using Apple, to leave a rating and a review, you go to the Creating a Family podcast page, which is the page where all of our episodes are listed, and scroll to the bottom of the page. That's where you can click on a star, and that gives us a star rating. And then right below that, you can click on the write a review. If you're on Spotify, you select the highlighted rating on the podcast page, and that pops you to a star review, and you can do that. To leave a comment on the episode itself or to write a review, you comment on the podcast right below the show notes, and that will be directly for this episode. And then for YouTube, for our YouTube listeners, we are on YouTube now. Give us a thumbs up or subscribe to our channel. You can also write a review or leave a comment in the comment section on YouTube, and we will absolutely read those, and we appreciate it. So thanks for listening to us today, and we will see you next week.